As the most trusted morning anchor in America, Matt Lauer made $25 million annually as the host of NBC's Today Show. However, a sinister truth that would ruin everything was hidden behind the cameras. One complaint in November 2017 permanently altered his life. He lost his job and was barred from NBC within a day. Then came the startling information. Decades-old accusations, several victims, and a hidden button behind his desk. The man who awakened millions of Americans would never again be employed. What actually transpired in his current way of life are being revealed now. In the center of New York City, Matt Lauer was born on December 30, 1957. He came from a really unusual background. Father J. Born into a Romanian Jewish family, Robert Lauer was an executive at a bicycle manufacturer. His mom, Marilyn Comer, owned her own boutique and was a model. Growing up, Matt lived in two very different worlds. The work ethic and values of immigrants influenced one. The other focused on appearance, fashion, and public persona. He was influenced by these early sources. They assisted him in being more polished, adaptive, and conscious of how others perceive him. For someone who would someday address millions of people on live television, they were crucial abilities. Matt wasn't the first member of his family to become well-known. Art Gentry, his grandfather, was a singer by trade. Young Matt frequently attended his performances during the heyday of music, even though he wasn't a well-known figure. He was deeply impacted by witnessing his grandfather command a stage. It wasn't merely amusement. The focus was on audience connection. Absorbed everything. He developed his poise, his ability to communicate in a way that captivated others, and his ability to carry himself. These lessons would subsequently shape his on-air approach and predate any journalism school. Matt enrolled at Ohio University in the latter part of the 1970s. He was on track to graduate with a major in communications. However, he took a risk in 1979 at the age of 21. He left school just 4 credits away from earning his degree. There was no waiting for a diploma. He desired genuine experience. And he understood it. Wowk TV in Huntington, West Virginia, was his first employer, where he worked as a news producer. Even though it wasn't glamorous, it was the beginning. Furthermore, Matt wasn't only taking off time. He made himself useful, worked hard, and picked things up quickly. He was doing on-camera reporting within a year, and he even got a part on his own talk show. His rapid progress was demonstrated by his early elevation to on-air reporter in 1980, at the age of just 22. Being so young and without a degree was odd, but Matt wasn't like that. He threw himself into it, managing the 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. a mid-sized market's newscasts. There was no puffiness here. There was pressure on live news. Despite being a novice, Matt's composed demeanor began to draw attention. He wanted to become a TV expert, not merely get a job. Matt served as co-host of PM Magazine in 3 different cities from 1980 to 1986. New York City comes after Providence and Richmond. It was uncommon for a host to successfully move markets in that way each time. The content of PM Magazine was a fast-paced blend of lifestyle articles, celebrity interviews, and local stories. It was challenging to execute, particularly when using distinct tones for each area. Matt, however, did. He became more polished with each move, learned what each audience wanted, and changed accordingly. He gained exposure in the largest media market in the nation during his tenure on the New York version of the show. It was a major advancement. Matt got a chance to appear on national television for the first time in 1986. Fame, Fortune, and Romance is a spin-off of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous that ABC debuted. He and Robin Leach, who is well known for his dramatic voice and tours of famous people's homes, co-hosted it. The extravagant and ostentatious presentation showcased billionaires' lives, yachts, and private jets. It was over in less than a year. However, it exposed Matt to a nationwide audience. No longer was he merely a local name. He was beginning to make headway. By the late 1980s, Matt was accomplishing something that nearly no one else could. At the same time, he was employed in other cities. He worked for ESPN and HBO in addition to juggling local hosting jobs in Boston and Philadelphia from 1987 to 1989. For ESPN, he would cover sporting events like the Stanley Cup Finals, and for HBO, he would cover entertainment parts. Long hours, frequent travel, and little sleep were all part of it. The industry took note. Everywhere he went. He lived at the airport, as some joked, but the effort paid off. His reputation was based on his ability to do everything well, including news, sports, and entertainment. During his tenure on 9 Broadcast Plaza from 1989 to 1991, Matt Lauer did more than just work in local news. It didn't take long for things to start getting weird on WER TV in New York, where the show ran live for 3 hours every day. In an attempt to capitalize on the craze for shock TV in the early 1990s, producers began to invite more outrageous and provocative guests. The direction did not appeal to Lauer. Even refusing to read live advertisements for a Dial-O-Matrice sponsor, he frequently disagreed with the producers. Which, for someone still establishing a reputation, was uncommon. After he left, hosts Howard Stern and Strange Al Yankovic took over for a while. His tenure there ended sudden. Later on, that same program changed its name to The Richard Bay Show, which gained notoriety for its Miss Big Butt contests and lie detector evaluations. Even when it went awry, Lauer had already left. He was nearly bankrupt by 1992. He didn't have a steady TV job and was on the verge of missing a rent payment. He was then given a lifeline by WNBC TV. He was hired to co-anchor with Jane Hansen on Today in New York. It was enough to get him back on his feet, even though the episode aired early in the morning. Within a year, he was elevated to co-anchor Live at 5, one of the station's most popular nighttime programs. For a period, he worked both shows, occasionally making appearances on 3 separate NBC shows in the same day. It was worth the long hours. He became known for his smoothness, dependability, and unexpected warmth for a newscaster. He exuded a lot of enthusiasm. He connected with NBC executives and added a human touch to rigid formats. His early years at WNBC contributed to his national recognition. Lauer became the person NBC could call for everything between 1992 and 1997. He covered for Tom Brokaw on Weekend Today, NBC News at Sunrise, and even NBC Nightly News. He had a tough schedule. Before lunch, he would be doing midday news, then prime news, and at daybreak, he would be giving the weather. It was irrelevant. He continued to show up and do it effectively. His name came to represent dependability at NBC. People observed that he could assume any role without hesitation. Despite his lack of flair, he was reliable and adaptable. During those years, top executives trusted you. His appointment as a full-time news anchor for the Today Show in January 1994 marked a turning point as a result of such trust. His ascent was swift and steady after that. Despite his increasing notoriety, Lauer still had not completed his undergraduate degree. He had graduated nearly 2 decades prior from Ohio University. Only 4 credits are missing. Finally, in 1997, at age 39, he returned. He was invited to complete his degree and deliver the graduating address by the president of the university. Lauer created a report discussing how his television work connected to his studies in place of attending conventional lectures. Almost 20 years after his contemporaries, he crossed the stage with the class of 1997 that June. It was more than simply a symbolic thing to him, it was a personal one. Later, he claimed that he was more proud of that moment than of many of his professional accomplishments. In appreciation of his efforts and the motivation he provided to other late finishers, the Ohio University Alumni Association presented him with the Medal of Merit 2 years later, in 1999. On June 13, 1994, Matt Lauer's career at NBC got underway. Moment he formally assumed the Today Show's news anchor position. At the time, Good Morning America was gaining viewers, and the show was having trouble. The presence of Lauer was just what NBC needed, a change. In contrast to most network anchors, he was not rigid. People thought he was a natural addition to their living room because of his warmth. He contributed to changing the course in 3 years. The audience began returning. He blended celebrity interviews with sobering news in a fresh and organic way. NBC took notice right away. Big names like Bryant Gumbel and Tom Brokaw were replaced by him. Lauer showed that he was capable of handling the kind of trust that was typically bestowed upon someone so inexperienced. When he was promoted to co-anchor, his Q rating had skyrocketed. He wasn't only well-liked. NBC had him as one of its most bankable names. Lauer developed close bonds with his co-hosts during those early years, but it wasn't always simple. Collaborating with seasoned professionals such as Bryant Gumbel required learning how to share space both on and off camera. Gumbel was notoriously domineering. He enjoyed taking charge of the performance, leading the major parts, and holding the reins. Lauer didn't confront it head-on, despite being 9 years younger. He won people over instead by being charming and funny. It was not the same with Katie Couric. They clicked right away. She developed a crush on Lauer when he was doing local news, Couric later said. Their chemistry on TV brightened the mornings. Together, they mocked, laughed, and even completed one another's sentences. Viewers adored it, even though it felt like a flirtation. The way they complimented one another gave the show a new atmosphere. Today felt more like a morning routine because of that link rather than a newscast. The soft stuff wasn't all Lauer dealt with. His abilities were on full display throughout significant news occurrences. Prior to his role as co-anchor, he had already covered significant national and international issues. He was trusted by NBC to provide live coverage when it counted. During the April 1995 bombing of Oklahoma City, he faced one of his first difficulties. The show's typically light tone had to shift at that point. Lauer was a member of that team. He was able to calmly give difficult news. During a tragedy, viewers felt stable because of that time. He also talked about O.J. Simpson trial, skillfully balancing sober news with morning viewers' accessibility. These encounters demonstrated that Lauer wasn't merely there to strike up conversation. He was becoming known as someone you could rely on in times of uncertainty. Lauer was elevated to the position of co-anchor on January 6, 1997. It was a significant move. He was replacing one of the industry's leading figures, Bryant Gumbel. The pressure was intense. That first week, everyone was watching to see if he could take it. Instead of merely surviving it, he flourished. The show's ratings for that week were the second highest in its history. In addition to reacting to the news, audiences also responded to the vibe Lauer and Couric exuded. He was dubbed the hunk next door around NBC. It was more than his appearance, though. He knew how to conduct an interview and was nimble and quick on his feet. He became the show's face for the next 20 years. He conducted interviews with presidents, celebrities, and those enmeshed in momentous occasions. A generation's perception of morning television was influenced by his tenure on Today. At the same time, Matt also started playing more important parts. He started working as a contributing anchor for Dateline NBC in 1997. He entered the field of investigative reporting throughout the 20 years he held that role. His coverage was not limited to humorous tales. He covered long-form documentaries, cultural issues, and mysteries. He focused on serious subjects and oversaw primetime programs that were broadcast in the evenings as opposed to only the mornings. It is a line that most morning anchors never get to cross. Matt, however, did it for 20 years. He carried millions of primetime viewers with him. It also contributed to the development of his reputation as a journalist capable of covering both serious and entertaining topics. He appeared more adaptable, dependable, and permanent than the majority of other news personalities because of that dual presence. This was also a fast-paced period in his personal life. He went on a blind date in July 1997 with Dutch model Annette Roque. They were married on October 3, 1998, in Bridgehampton, New York, just 5 months later. Fans and tabloids were equally interested in the brief marriage. At barely 22, Annette, who went by Jade in the modeling industry, was already well known in Paris and New York. She had done modeling for Jay and Victoria's Secret. Cruan infused the partnership with her own unique brand of global sophistication. Later on, Matt said that he didn't immediately connect with her on their first date. About 2 months passed before they ever had a kiss. However, as they advanced, they did so quickly. The fact that their marriage brought together a European fashion model and one of America's most well-known television personalities made it a media sensation. In the end, they would have 3 kids together, but their relationship was fraught with difficulties. Jack Matthew, their first child, was born on June 26, 2001. They had their youngest child, Tiz, in November 2006, and their daughter, Romy, in October 2003. The family appeared to be ideal on the surface. Matt discussed how much he loved milestones, family dinners, quiet times, and raising children together. Although such small things appeared to be more important than the limelight, the strain of his job and the unceasing attention they got eroded the foundation of their family life. They frequently went to public events together, such as school graduations and their kids' horseback riding competitions, but things were not always as peaceful as they seemed. When Annette was expecting Tiz in 2006, she filed for divorce. It was a surprising filing. She allegedly accused Matt of emotional pain, humiliation, mental abuse, and domineering manner. He was extremely angry and hostile, she claimed, and even attempted to influence even the smallest choices they made. The image it depicted was very different from what viewers thought they saw on screen. The whole thing was made considerably more agonizing by the timing. While residing in the Hamptons and portraying themselves as a solid family, they were expecting their 3rd child. However, reality was unraveling. The petition for divorce served as a wake-up call. Not only for their immediate social circle but also for the whole public, who had viewed them as the perfect pair. What followed took everyone by surprise. The divorce petition was withdrawn by Annette a few weeks after it was filed. They made the decision to try counseling and resolve the issue. Particularly in light of such grave accusations, many believed the breakup was inevitable. However, it seems that Matt and Annette agreed that their children should be given another chance at family life. They remained together in public life for the following 10 years. In an effort to provide their kids with a feeling of normalcy, they kept attending activities together. Behind the scenes, however, there was a lot of emotional work. Afterwards, friends claimed that although they appeared to be a couple, they frequently led totally different lives. Although the reconciliation preserved Matt's reputation, it did not resolve the issues that initially prompted the divorce petition. The controversy that ended Matt Lauer's career started out subtly in Sochi, Russia, at the 2014 Winter Olympics. He was one of the most dependable personalities on American television at the time, earning $20 million annually as the primary anchor of NBC's Today program. But a horrible thing was going on behind the scenes. Later, a young NBC employee reported to the network that Lauer had sexually assaulted her in his Olympic hotel room. She claimed that it was rape and not a misunderstanding, and the details were unsettling. Her name was Brooke Nevels, and until Ronan Farrow's 2019 book Catch and Kill, her story remained secret. Lauer's career would be quietly terminated by a series of events that began that day in Sochi. As soon as NBC received the complaint, an internal inquiry was started. Lauer was dismissed by NBC on November 29, 2017, less than a day after the report was received. Everyone was stunned by the quickness. Only minutes before they were to make the announcement live on the air, his co-hosts Hoda Kotb and Savannah Guthrie learned. While delivering the news to millions of viewers, they appeared astonished and moved. In a matter of hours, Lauer left the show after 20 years of participation. What transpired, however, was even more intense. At least 3 additional women came out with their own accounts of harassment within a 24-hour period. They did not have isolated accounts. They displayed an obvious pattern of behavior that had persisted for many years. Some women said that no one had paid attention to their previous attempts to report him. Due of Lauer's immense influence at the network, many people were too scared to speak up. The accumulation of anecdotes made it clear that this was about a corporate culture that allowed this to occur, not just one individual. Then followed the most unsettling information. Variety spoke with hundreds of NBC personnel, both past and present, before publishing a piece. Lauer has a hidden button beneath his desk that allowed him to lock his office door from the inside, they disclosed. NBC asserted that it was merely a common security feature, but other women alleged he had exploited it to trap them. Additionally, according to the article, he handed sex toys to female colleagues. He got to know his coworkers and asked women about their sexual life. He made fun of or chastised them if they resisted him. There was no rumor here. People who had worked with him for years provided these first-hand reports. It became evident that the abuse had been tolerated in a poisonous atmosphere. A particularly unsettling tale dates back to 2001. Lauer summoned her to his office during the workday, according to a former producer of the Today Show. He pressed the concealed button and shut the door once she entered. She should unbutton her blouse, he instructed. After that, he attacked her. She claimed that during the attack, she fainted and woke up on the ground with her trousers undone. Lauer needed to be taken to a nurse by her aide. For fear of damaging her job, she chose not to disclose it. Lauer was invincible back then. She wouldn't have been believed. He continued in that stillness. NBC made it apparent that he was gone for good when they fired him in November 2017. At about 6:30 a.m., right before the day's live broadcast, the network chairman wrote a memo to the staff. The note stated that Lauer had transgressed NBC standards and that they thought the incident was not unique. The remainder of his contract was likewise not paid out. Lauer's $20 million yearly contract was terminated by NBC right away. He was not given any severance pay. Since they felt the misconduct was severe enough to terminate the contract completely, he was fired for cause. That choice made it clear that they had no intention of continuing to work with him. For months, Variety has been working on their study. It was a highly explosive moment. Their complete findings were published the same day Lauer was fired. They detailed a persistent harassment pattern. Includes Lauer exposing himself, providing sex toys with graphic notes, and making offensive remarks all the time. Workers described the environment as one of terror. Despite knowing what was happening, many people felt powerless to speak up. The story made it apparent that the material in the complaint that NBC received was not fresh. It was only the first one they had taken action on at last. It was even more startling to learn that NBC management had been aware of Lauer's actions for years. Several employees said that complaints had gone unanswered. In a direct statement, one former worker said that because he was too crucial to the network, management had shielded him. The harm was already done, even if NBC denied knowing anything beforehand. The issue of how many others had suffered in silence and who else had turned a blind eye started to spread. As a result of the controversy, NBC had to modify its internal policies. They implemented new regulations that made covering up wrongdoing a crime punishable by termination. Matt Lauer fell from grace quickly. He went from being one of the most dependable faces on American television to a ghost in an instant. Almost entirely removed from public life, the man who formerly dominated morning news was ousted from NBC's Today Show in late 2017. By 2018, several of his closest pals had severed their connections. Those who used to frequently text and call him stopped doing so. He failed to reply to messages. He was seldom out from home. He reportedly avoided talking to anyone outside of his immediate family for months. Unexpectedly, the man who used to host prestigious events and walk the red carpet disappeared. His refuge was to his Hamptons house. He made an effort to blend in behind Stronghart Manor's gates. He paid $36.5 million for the enormous waterfront property in 2016 from Richard Gere. The mansion was more than 14,000 square feet in size, with 12 bedrooms, 12 baths, and all the amenities you could want, such a heated pool and a tea house by the water. Once, he put it up for $44.8 million. In 2022, it was eventually sold for $40.9 million. When locals saw him doing everyday tasks like picking up breakfast or transporting his children to school, he always appeared exhausted. He was making an effort to fit in. He kept other houses close by, but he said nothing. His once camera-ready life faded into the background. Simultaneously, his union with Annette Rook ended. She was a Dutch equestrian and model. And they had been wed for 21 years. Between them, they had 3 children. She and he split up practically instantly after the controversy. It took almost 2 years, and on September 7, 2019, the divorce was finalized. He apparently accepted all of her demands without protest. She took full possession of their horse property along with up to $20 million in other assets. They kept running the property together. And it was said that the children's custody agreement was amicable. They handled it in a low-key manner in spite of the publicity. According to those close to Lauer, he attempted to keep the marriage intact, but Roque had already decided what she wanted. The situation worsened in October 2019. Catch and Kill, a book written by writer Ronan Farrow, had grave accusations against Lauer at that time. Brooke Neville's, a former NBC producer, was accused of being raped during the 2014 Sochi Olympics. Lauer disputed it, maintaining that the partnership had been voluntary. However, the book was more than a single story. It depicted a system that had shielded Lauer for many years. It explained NBC's culture of silence, where grievances were ignored and influential people turned a blind eye. People were in disbelief. The news went viral once more. Lauer was more than just a discredited anchor. Now, he played a key role in a broader discussion about power and abuse in the media. Finally, Lauer answered in 2020. He finally penned a lengthy open letter after 2 years of silence. According to him, the relationship had been improper but not illegal, refuting Neville's claims. He charged Ronan Farrow of poor journalism, saying the book disregarded facts and did not adequately reflect his position. The media, he claimed, was more concerned with sensationalism than the facts. In addition to acknowledging his shortcomings, he chastised the way the media and public saw him. Despite being impassioned and thorough, the letter didn't make much of a difference. It was viewed by most as a feeble attempt to save his reputation. Farrow maintained his reporting. They had already done the harm. Lauer is still residing in the Hamptons as of 2025. He also travels to New Zealand. His wealth continues to be high, at about $80 million, in spite of everything. At the peak of his career, NBC paid him up to $25 million annually. He is financially stable even after paying a sizable divorce settlement. He hasn't started any new projects or gone back to television, and he doesn't have to. He lives a tranquil, opulent life without the attention he once desired by keeping a low profile. An unforeseen event occurred in his personal life. Shortly after his divorce in 2019, he started dating luxury brand CEO and old buddy Shaman Abbas. Prior to their romance, they had been acquaintances for around 20 years. They have kept things quiet in spite of the media's great attention. They alternate between the Hamptons and New York, travel together, and occasionally go to events. Friends describe Abbas as being very supportive. It had been over 5 years since they first started dating. They seem happy leading a life very different from Lauer's previous one and stay out of the spotlight. By 2024, another change occurred. Lauer began contacting former pals again. Following years of seclusion, he started contacting people by phone and message. According to those close to him, he appeared more at ease. He had established a routine in his new life and was spending more time with his children. No indications of regret or a return were present. A man attempting to go forward and out of the spotlight.